The vastness of space was usually silent, but tonight in the orbit of Zarkal Prime, that silence was shattered. Deep in the outer reaches of the Zarkelian Empire, the long-range surveillance buoy blinked a warning. An enormous fleet had appeared out of nowhere, far beyond the mapped stars, crossing into Imperial space. Admiral Krenval stood rigidly on the bridge of the Imperator's Wrath, the flagship of the First Fleet. His sharp eyes scanned the holoscreen that floated before him, a tapestry of blinking dots and schematics, all suddenly dwarfed by the black shapes now visible on long-range sensors. "They're here," whispered his communications officer, barely daring to speak. The word felt impossible. The fleet was unlike anything the Zarkelians had ever seen. Their warships were angular and black, their surfaces smooth yet intimidating, adorned with strange glowing blue lines. They lacked the Imperial insignia, the clan markings, even the familiar weapon signatures. They moved in perfect formation, silent, efficient, and utterly foreign. Kren swallowed his surprise. The Empire was vast, powerful. No enemy had ever dared approach this close without announcement, or declaration of war. Yet here they were, an unknown force, immense and silent as the void itself. "Open a channel," Kren ordered, voice steady though his heart pounded in his chest. "Identify yourselves. State your purpose." The bridge officers hesitated. All transmissions to the unknown fleet went unanswered. Minutes passed like hours. Then a single ship, larger than any battleship Kren had ever commanded, shifted into view. Its silhouette was unmistakable, a massive human battleship with sharp edges and a design that was, disturbingly, somewhat familiar yet utterly alien. "Humans," Kren breathed. The word felt like a curse and a revelation all at once. The Zarkelian Empire had heard legends of humans, mythic, almost forgotten. Tales of a race driven from the galaxy long ago, scattered beyond the edge of known space, after a war so ancient, no record remained. Many dismissed it as legend, old stories whispered by historians in the lower cities. But here they were. On the Imperator's Wrath, tension thickened the air. The officers exchanged worried glances. What did the humans want? Revenge? Conquest? Or was this some long-forgotten migration? A return from exile? "High Chancellor must be informed immediately," Kren said, already knowing that the news would rip through the Imperial bureaucracy like wildfire. The Empire's peace, maintained for centuries by fear and overwhelming power, was fragile. This was the first real threat in generations. Back in the Imperial Palace on Zarkal Prime, High Chancellor Varun sat alone in his chamber when the message arrived. The holographic projection flickered to life. Images of the human fleet, massive and silent, floating against the backdrop of stars. Varun's icy gaze narrowed. "So the ghosts have returned," he said quietly, almost to himself. The humans were not just a fleet. They were a warning from the past, an echo of a forgotten war. "Prepare the War Council," he ordered. "We will not be caught off guard." Elsewhere across the Empire, news spread fast. Traders stopped in their tracks. Governors debated frantically. The Empire was unprepared for an enemy it did not understand. Meanwhile, on the outermost listening post, far beyond the border, Commander Tala Rin felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Her eyes never left the viewscreen as the fleet moved silently past her station. She tried again to hail them, but only silence answered. "They don't want to talk," Tala said grimly to her crew. "Or they don't need to." Suddenly, one ship flickered, its cloaking devices activating. It disappeared from every sensor, vanished like a ghost. "Impossible," one of the tech officers murmured. "No ship has mastered cloaking to this degree. Neither has anyone here," Tala said, her voice steady but tense. "This changes everything." Back on the Imperator's Wrath, Kren studied the empty space where the human ship had vanished. The fleet's silent advance was no accident. It was a message, an unspoken threat. "Alert all sectors," he commanded. "Prepare for immediate mobilization." In the shadows of the Empire, whispers grew louder. The humans were back. The galaxy's ancient balance was cracking, and no one could say what would happen next. The void watched and waited. High Chancellor Varun sat motionless beneath the grand crystal dome of the Imperial Palace, his gaze fixed on the holomap pulsing with the ominous outline of the human fleet. The chamber was filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders, the War Council, the Shadow Ministers, the heads of intelligence. Their voices buzzed like a hive of angry hornets, but Varun heard only the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. "We cannot allow this threat to fester," Varun said, his voice cold and cutting like a knife. "These humans arrive unannounced. They hold technology beyond our comprehension. They flaunt our borders. It is a declaration of war, by any other name." Admiral Krenval, summoned from his fleet, stood rigid beside the Chancellor's dais. "My fleet is ready to strike. High Chancellor, we can force them to retreat." "But at what cost?" interjected Minister Zyla of Intelligence. "We know nothing of their motives. They have not fired a single shot. Perhaps they seek parley. Or they wait for the perfect moment to crush us," Varun snapped. "The Empire cannot afford hesitation." Across the chamber, murmurs rose. Some argued for caution, some feared the humans' arrival signaled a far greater threat. Others called for immediate retaliation to show Imperial strength. Varun's eyes flicked to the flickering holofeed from deep space. The humans did not respond to hails. Their ships moved with purpose, unyielding and silent. The unknown bred fear. "Activate the spy networks, infiltrate their ranks if possible," Varun commanded. "I want their secrets, their weaknesses. We will strike first, but we must be prepared." Suddenly the grand chamber shuddered. The crystal dome rippled with an unnatural vibration. The massive palace shook. Once, twice. Alarm bells echoed through the hallways. An aide rushed in, breathless. "High Chancellor, we've detected a catastrophic explosion in the lower city. The central power grid has been sabotaged. Casualties are mounting." Varun's face hardened. "Sabotage? This is no coincidence. Preliminary reports suggest the blast originated from a terrorist cell linked to unknown human sympathizers," the aide continued. "They claim the humans are liberators." The room erupted into chaos. Zyla's eyes narrowed. "A false flag operation. Someone is trying to destabilize the Empire from within." "Or," Varun said slowly, "someone wants to provoke us into a reckless war." The tension was palpable. The Empire had long been a fortress of order and control, but tonight that facade cracked. Factions within the court whispered of betrayal, secret alliances, and traitors among their own. Outside, in the sprawling cityscape of Zarkal Prime, fires burned and sirens screamed. The populace, already anxious from the rumors of the human fleet, now faced panic and unrest. Imperial guards were deployed in force, but it felt like trying to contain a wildfire with bare hands. Meanwhile, on the Imperator's wrath, Admiral Krenval paced the command deck. The explosion in the capital sent a clear message. The humans' arrival had already shaken the Empire's foundations deeper than anyone imagined. "Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment." Varun's orders crackled through the comms. "I want shows of force, patrols tightening around every system. We will not let these humans dictate terms." Kren gritted his teeth. The humans fought in shadows and silence, disabling outposts without destruction, subverting rather than annihilating. His fleet was built for brutal combat, not espionage and electronic warfare. The Empire's arrogance in conventional might was its greatest weakness. On the edge of the galaxy, a young intelligence operative, Vyra, stared at her datapad in disbelief. She had intercepted strange encrypted transmissions from within human-held space, signals unlike any known code. Something inside those transmissions hinted at memories, ancient histories buried beneath layers of time and silence. Her superiors dismissed her findings as fantasy, but Vera's curiosity burned. If humans remembered the old wars, if they still carried the scars of exile, it could explain their silent, deliberate return. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp knock on her door. "Vera, you're needed in the War Council chamber immediately. The Chancellor demands all intelligence on the human fleet." Vera rose, clutching her datapad. She knew this was the moment she would either prove her worth or be swallowed by the growing storm of suspicion. Back in the Imperial chambers, Varun's gaze hardened. They will learn that the Empire does not cower. But beneath his steely exterior, a cold whisper of doubt crept in. What if these humans were not merely a fleet, but a herald of something far darker? What if the ancient wars that once shattered the galaxy were beginning anew? Outside the palace, the fires of rebellion flickered. Inside, the Empire's heart beat faster, its pride and power facing a test unlike any before. The humans had arrived, and the Empire was scrambling in panic. The outer rim systems of the Zarkelian Empire had always been a rugged frontier. Harsh asteroid belts, broken planets, and lawless outposts where the Imperial grasp was tenuous at best. Now they were the first to face the quiet storm of the human fleet. Commander Tala Rin stood on the bridge of the cruiser Vigilant Edge, her sharp eyes tracing the strange contours of a disabled Imperial mining station. The station's antenna arrays and weapons platforms were intact but utterly lifeless. Every power source drained, every system cold, no explosions, no battle scars, just silence. They didn't destroy it, Tala murmured. They took control. They're ghosts. Her comm officer nodded grimly. The human fleet is sweeping through the frontier like a phantom wave. Systems fall without a fight. No casualties, no fires, just dead zones. The Empire's fleets had always been built for war. Overwhelming firepower, brutal efficiency, devastating force. But against the humans, conventional tactics failed. In the distance, the black shapes of human ships glided through asteroid fields as if they were water, maneuvering with impossible grace. One by one, the Imperial patrols sent to intercept them were left crippled, not burned or shattered, but stunned, their weapons disabled, engines frozen, hulls locked down by technology the Empire's finest engineers could not decipher. On board the Vigilant Edge, tension hung heavy. "What kind of war is this?" Tala demanded. "We're fighting enemies who don't want to fight." "We don't know their goal," the tactical officer replied, "but it's clear. They want control without destruction." The implications struck deep. The humans weren't conquerors in the traditional sense. They were infiltrators, hackers, and puppeteers. The old doctrines of combat were useless. A burst of static crackled through the comm. "Commander," a voice whispered, "you need to hear this." The officer played a recording from a captured Imperial frigate, one of many that had fallen silent in the wake of the human advance. The transmission was brief, fragmented, but chilling. We've been boarded. No shots fired. Systems overridden. The humans. They're not soldiers. They're something else. They remember. They understand us in a way no one else can. It's like they're ghosts in our machines. Tala's breath caught. The humans were more than alien warriors. They were living legends come to life. Ghosts from an old war no one had dared mention aloud. Back on Zarko Prime, High Chancellor Varun clenched his fists as he watched another feed from the front lines. A captured Imperial warship, its crew, frozen in place, was now streaming human symbols across its hull, a silent brand of conquest. Varun's advisors urged swift retaliation, but he hesitated. Every strike failed. Every battle was a humiliation. The humans didn't just fight. They dismantled the very concept of warfare as the Empire knew it. Then came the whispers from the intelligence networks. Systems, loyal to the Empire's crown, were sending secret messages to the humans. Governors once loyal now spoke in hushed tones of liberation and alliance. The Empire's iron grip was slipping. In the darkest corner of the Imperial archives, a scholar named Dax uncovered a dusty tome. The faded text told of an ancient war, fought not with guns, but with mind and machine. A war the Empire had won by exiling humanity beyond the galactic rim. But the tome hinted at something darker still. Humanity's exile was not an end, but a beginning. Dax's heart pounded as he realized the truth. The humans had returned, not just as warriors, but as inheritors of lost knowledge, wielding power the Empire had never dreamed possible. Suddenly, an encrypted message from the captured frigate blinked onto his screen. "We remember what you forgot." The phrase echoed in Dax's mind like a hammer striking steel. Meanwhile, on the front, Tala's fleet detected an unusual human maneuver. A single ship, shrouded in a field of energy undetectable by Imperial sensors, darted through an asteroid belt. It moved not like a warship but like a predator, silent, deadly, invisible. "Contact lost," her comm officer reported. "No," Tala said, gripping the railing. "Contact forbidden." The human fleet was playing a game far beyond the Empire's understanding. They controlled space and silence alike. As dusk fell over the capital, Varun stared out across the city lights, his mind racing. The Empire's centuries of arrogance had met a force that did not merely oppose but dismantled. The humans were ghosts, not of the dead, but of a future the Empire could not see. The galaxy was changing, and the humans were its harbingers. The mighty Zarkelian Empire was beginning to crack. Once a seamless web of control stretching across hundreds of star systems, the Empire's grasp was now slipping like sand through clenched fists. The arrival of the human fleet was more than a military threat. It was a catalyst, awakening long-suppressed resentments and fears. In the wealthy core worlds, governors and nobles whispered behind closed doors. Some spoke of alliance with the humans as salvation, others called for brutal repression. The Imperial Senate, usually a stage for empty grandstanding, erupted into chaos. Declarations of loyalty were met with suspicion. Accusations of treason filled the halls. In the industrial sprawl of Kyrek, one of the Empire's richest colonies, protests ignited overnight. Thousands marched in the streets, chanting slogans once forbidden, calls for freedom, calls to welcome the humans as liberators. Governor Malrek's face was a mask of rage and disbelief as he watched the unrest spread. "This is sedition," he barked. "The Empire stands united. Those who defy it will be crushed." But beneath his palace, secret emissaries met with human envoys in shadowed tunnels. The old loyalty that had bound the Empire's subjects was fracturing, and the humans fed the cracks. Meanwhile, within the towering walls of the Imperial Palace, High Chancellor Varun faced a crisis more personal than political. His closest advisors urged him to show strength, to rally the fleets and wipe out the dissenters. But Varun knew the truth. Strength alone would not hold the Empire together. One such advisor, Minister Zyla, presented him with troubling intelligence. "We have confirmed communications between human sympathizers and several border systems. They're sharing technology, disabling our sensors, sabotaging supply lines. The rebellion grows." Varun's eyes narrowed. "Then we must root them out. No mercy." Yet even as he spoke, another report reached him, this one from a young scholar named Dax, who had uncovered fragments of ancient human history buried in forbidden archives. The text spoke of Terrans, humans exiled for crimes unknown, whose descendants had fled beyond the galaxy's edge, surviving in exile. If true, this history meant the humans were not strangers but forgotten kin. Worse still, their return was no accident, it was a reckoning. Varun summoned Dax to his chamber. The young scholar entered nervously, clutching the brittle tome. "Explain this," Varun commanded, voice icy. Dax spoke carefully. "The Terrans were once part of this galaxy, before the rise of the Empire. They were exiled after a war that threatened all life. Their knowledge was vast, far beyond our own. They disappeared into the void, but they never forgot." Varun leaned forward. "And now they returned to claim what was lost?" Dax shook his head. "Not to claim, to warn. Something darker lurks beyond the stars, something that threatens every species, every system. The Terrans have come to prepare us." The room was silent. Varun's mind reeled. Could he trust this scholar? Could he trust the humans? Outside the palace, the Empire's enforcers cracked down harder on rebellion. Military tribunals sentenced hundreds to exile or death. But the harder they squeezed, the more systems slipped from control. In the mining colony of Raylan's Deep, the once loyal governor openly declared independence, broadcasting a message of solidarity with the humans. "The Empire has lost its way," he said. "We choose freedom and unity." Elsewhere, pirate gangs and mercenaries capitalized on the chaos, disrupting supply routes and spreading terror. The Empire's once mighty fleets were stretched thin, chasing shadows. Back on the vigilant edge, Commander Tala Rin received disturbing news. Several of her trusted officers had been arrested for suspected collusion with human sympathizers. The rumors gnawed at the crew's morale. "We're fighting ghosts, Commander," one officer confessed. "Not just in the enemy fleet, but in our own ranks." Tala clenched her jaw. The Empire was losing from within, and every day the humans grew stronger, not by conquest, but by alliance and influence. In a hidden chamber deep beneath Zarkal Prime, Dax pored over the ancient texts, decoding cryptic symbols and warnings. His mind raced with the implications. The humans' technology, their silent war, everything pointed to a future the Empire was blind to. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside. Agents of the Shadow Ministers arrived. "You will come with us, Scholar," their leader said coldly. "The Chancellor requires your silence." As Dax was dragged away, the truth remained buried, for now. The Empire's iron grip was fracturing. The humans were no longer a distant fleet. They were the spark igniting rebellion, the memory stirring, the forgotten, and the warning heralding a storm none could ignore. And in the shadowed corners of the galaxy, old enemies began to stir. The fires of rebellion had spread like wildfire across the Empire, and in the shadows of this chaos new players emerged, silent, deadly, and unseen. Commander Tala Rin sat in her dimly lit quarters aboard the vigilant edge, the weight of command pressing down on her like a suffocating shroud. The mutiny among her officers was only the beginning. Whispers of sabotage, secret alliances, and betrayals echoed through the ship's corridors like ghosts. She tapped a holoscreen, reviewing. Intercepted transmissions encrypted with unfamiliar codes, the same strange symbols Dax had uncovered in the archives. Someone was feeding the rebels with forbidden knowledge, and it was unraveling the Empire from within. A sharp knock startled her. Lieutenant Karras, her most trusted aide, entered. "Commander, we've received a priority message from the War Council." Tala nodded, her jaw tight. "Patch it through." The War Council's voice was grim. "Commander Rin, the rebellion is gaining strength. Intelligence confirms that several key systems have openly joined the human cause. Your fleet must hold the line, or the Empire will fall." Tala stared out the viewport at the stars beyond. "The humans don't just attack," she said quietly. "They infiltrate. They turn our people against us. How do we fight an enemy that wears our own faces?" "Then we root out the traitors," Karras replied, determination burning in his eyes. "No matter the cost." Tala nodded. "Agreed. But we'll need more than brute force. We need to understand them." That night, beneath the endless stars, Tala sent a secret message to an anonymous contact, one rumored to have deep knowledge of the humans and their past. The reply came swiftly, a rendezvous on a remote moon far from prying eyes. The next day, Tala's shuttle touched down on the barren rock. Waiting in the shadows was a figure cloaked in dark robes, their face obscured beneath a hood. "You seek the truth about the humans," the figure said, voice low and resonant. "I seek to protect the Empire," Tala answered. "But if the Empire is to survive, I need to know what we face." The figure nodded. "The humans are not invaders. They are heirs to a forgotten legacy. Their ancestors were cast out after the Great War, a war that shattered civilizations and nearly destroyed the galaxy." Tala's eyes narrowed. "Then why return now? What is their purpose?" The figure's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because the darkness that once nearly consumed all life is stirring again. The humans have returned not to conquer, but to prepare for a war the Empire cannot win alone." Tala's heart pounded. "You speak of something beyond the humans? Something greater?" The figure extended a hand, revealing a small device glowing with ancient symbols. This is a key to knowledge lost. Knowledge the Empire has long forgotten. If the humans hold the key to survival, then we must choose. Resist them, or join them. Before Tala could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the moon's surface. Imperial forces had found the meeting, and gunfire erupted through the barren landscape. Tala drew her sidearm, shielding the figure as they fled into the jagged canyons. "We'll talk later," she shouted over the chaos. "Right now, we survive." Back aboard the Vigilant Edge, Tala pored over the data from the mysterious device. It contained maps, star charts, and fragmented histories, evidence of an ancient alliance between humans and other forgotten races, united once against a shadowy force that sought to extinguish all life. The implications were staggering. The humans' silent advance, their strange technology, their refusal to engage in open battle, all made sense if they were preparing for a threat far greater than the Empire's pride. But the Empire would not listen. Varun's grip tightened, and with it, the noose around dissidents and suspected sympathizers grew ever tighter. In the sprawling capital city, protests turned violent. Imperial enforcers clashed with rebels in the streets, and the populace's cries echoed through the marble halls of power. The fear of the humans was no longer about invasion. It was about the collapse of an empire that had ruled for centuries. Tala knew the war was no longer just in space. It was a battle for hearts, minds, and the very soul of the galaxy. As the stars gleamed cold and distant outside her window, she made a vow to uncover the human secrets, to bridge the widening chasm, and to face the darkness looming on the horizon. The humans had come not to destroy, but to save. The question was whether the Empire would survive long enough to accept their salvation. Darkness fell across Zarkal Prime, but inside the Imperial Palace the night was restless. High Chancellor Varun paced his private chambers, the weight of the galaxy's fate pressing down on him. Reports of rebellion multiplied, fleets faltered, and whispers of the humans' true purpose gnawed at his mind like a relentless shadow. A sharp knock interrupted his brooding. The door slid open to reveal a cloaked figure, Dax, the scholar who had uncovered forbidden histories. His face was pale but determined. "High Chancellor," Dax said quietly. "There is more to the humans than you realize." Varun gestured to a chair. "Speak." Dax pulled from beneath his cloak a compact data crystal, its surface etched with ancient symbols. "This is a record from the lost archives of the Terrans. It reveals the truth behind their exile and the war they fought." Varun's eyes narrowed as the crystal played images of vast battles, not of ships firing laser bolts, but of minds clashing, machines bending reality, entire planets caught in psychic storms. They were cast out because they wielded powers beyond control, Dax continued. The Empire saw them as a threat and banished them beyond the galaxy's edge. Varun's jaw clenched. "And now they have returned." "Yes," Dax said, "but not to conquer, to warn." The door hissed open again. Minister Zyla entered, her face grim. "Chancellor, new intelligence confirms human sympathizers have infiltrated several key systems. Sabotage, misinformation. The Empire is bleeding from within." Varun's voice was cold steel. "Then we must purge the rot before it consumes us." Dax hesitated. "If we continue down this path, we risk destroying what little unity remains. The humans say a greater darkness approaches, a force that once nearly ended all life." Varun dismissed the notion. Superstition and fear-mongering. But doubt lingered. Meanwhile, far beyond the Empire's grasp, aboard a sleek human ship hidden in a nebula of swirling cosmic dust, Captain Aria Morgan studied her crew's data. The galaxy was a tinderbox ready to ignite, and the ancient threat they had prepared for was stirring again. "Captain," her second-in-command said, "our networks report another Imperial fleet crippled without a shot fired." Aria nodded. "Our mission remains unchanged. We dismantle their war machine without destruction. We seek allies within the Empire, not enemies." Her mind flicked to the transmissions she had intercepted. fragments of forgotten memories and warnings. The humans' technology was designed not just for combat, but for awakening. Prepare to initiate Phase 2, Arya ordered. The hidden war begins now. Back on Zarkal Prime, Commander Tala Rin received a covert message from an unknown source within the human fleet. It contained coordinates and a single line of text. Meet us where the stars remember. Against her instincts, Tala set course for the rendezvous, driven by a desperate need to understand the enemy she had come to suspect was more ally than foe. The meeting point was an ancient space station orbiting a dead star, a relic of the pre-imperial age, forgotten by most. As Tala docked her ship, a chill ran down her spine. This place held secrets the Empire had buried deep. Within the station's silent halls, human envoys awaited, their expressions grave. They spoke not as conquerors, but as guardians. Our ancestors fought a war you have forgotten, their leader said. A war that shaped the fate of this galaxy. Tala listened as they revealed the true enemy, a shadow entity known only as the Voidborn, an ancient force of destruction that had been sealed away but now sought to return. The Empire's pride blinded it to the threat. The envoy warned. But you can help us stop it. Tala's heart hammered. Her loyalty to the Empire warred, with the terrifying truth she faced. Why trust us? She asked. Because if the Voidborn awaken, the envoy said, there will be no Empire, no humans, only annihilation. Back in the capital, Varun's grip on power was slipping. The Senate was divided, rebellions flared, and the human fleet moved with an eerie inevitability. In a desperate gambit, Varun ordered a brutal crackdown, sending shock troops into rebel territories, hoping to crush dissent with overwhelming force. But as fire rained down, the humans acted swiftly, rescuing innocents, disabling weapons, and striking blows not of violence but of liberation. The war had shifted. It was no longer a battle for territory, but a race to prepare for the true enemy lurking in the shadows. As the galaxy trembled on the brink of chaos, unlikely alliances formed. Tala Rin stood at the crossroads, between an empire in decay and a future fraught with peril. The hidden war had begun. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Across the fractured empire, the tremors of rebellion grew into a roar. Systems once loyal now openly declared defiance, their banners raised alongside the enigmatic human fleet. The old order was crumbling, and in its place a fragile hope flickered. Commander Tala Rin stood on the bridge of the Vigilant Edge, watching the sprawling galaxy map flicker with blinking lights. Zones of conflict, zones of peace, zones still unclaimed. Each represented a choice, a chance, or a risk. Beside her, Lieutenant Karras leaned forward, voice tense. The rebel coalition is forming faster than we anticipated. More governors and military leaders are reaching out. The human's message resonates. Tala nodded. They don't just bring power, they bring a warning. We have to convince the Empire's loyalists to join us, or we'll be crushed from within. Suddenly the comm panel beeped urgently. An incoming transmission from High Chancellor Varun himself. Tala's stomach twisted. She tapped the console, accepting the call. Varun's face appeared, drawn and cold. Commander Rin, you are walking a dangerous path. The Empire's authority is absolute. Your rebellion is treason. We are not rebels, Chancellor, Tala replied steadily. We seek survival. Your Empire clings to pride while the galaxy burns. Varun's eyes flashed with fury. If you betray the Empire, you betray all you hold dear. Before Tala could respond, the transmission cut off abruptly. She turned to Karras. The Chancellor will strike harder. We must prepare. Meanwhile, far beyond the core worlds, the human fleet converged at the ancient neutral station Tala had visited weeks before. Captain Arya Morgan stood among her council of commanders, their faces grim but resolute. The Voidborn grow stronger, Arya announced. Sensors confirm fluctuations near the galactic rim. Their shadow spreads like a plague. An elder advisor stepped forward. The time for hiding is over. We must rally all allies, human and alien alike. The last war taught us that isolation leads to annihilation. Arya's eyes swept the room. Our strategy must shift. We go from silent infiltrators to open protectors. We will show the galaxy that the humans stand not as conquerors but as guardians. Back on Zarkal Prime, the capital was a powder keg. Protests erupted daily, and violent skirmishes left the streets stained with blood. Varun's forces tightened their grip, but the cracks were too deep. In a hidden chamber beneath the palace, Dax was held prisoner, but his mind remained free. He pieced together the ancient texts, desperate to find a way to stop the Voidborn. Suddenly, his cell door hissed open. A figure stepped inside. Minister Zyla. "I'm not here to kill you," she said softly. "The Chancellor cannot win this war alone. He's blind to what's coming." Dax looked up, hope flickering. "Then what do you want?" "To join forces. You have knowledge. I have access. Together we might save the Empire." Reluctantly, Dax nodded. "Then we must expose the truth before it's too late." Far above, the human fleet scouts detected a massive rift opening at the edge of the galaxy. The fabric of space twisted and tore, a gateway spilling shadows and death. "Voidborn," Arya whispered. The time for warning was over. Back on the vigilant edge, Tala gathered her officers. "We stand at the brink. The Empire will fight to the last breath. But if we unite with the humans and those willing to listen, we can face what comes next." Karis raised a fist. "For survival. For the future." As the first human Imperial Coalition fleets prepared to face the darkness, the galaxy held its breath. The gathering storm was here. The stars were no longer silent. Darkness spilled from the rift at the galaxy's edge, an endless tide of shadow and despair that consumed everything in its path. The Voidborn had returned, and their hunger was insatiable. Commander Tala Rin stood on the bridge of the Vigilant Edge, the flagship of the newly forged human Imperial Coalition. Around her, officers moved with grim purpose, their faces marked by exhaustion and determination. The war they had feared was here. Beside her, Captain Arya Morgan, the human fleet commander, surveyed the approaching horror. "This is more than a battle. It's survival. Of all life." Tala nodded. "The Empire and humans united. For the first time in centuries, we fight together." The Coalition fleet surged forward, crossing the threshold of the rift. Ships of every design, Imperial dreadnoughts, human stealth cruisers, alien vessels of unknown origin, fought as one, weaving through tendrils of darkness that sought to crush them. Energy weapons flared, illuminating the void with bursts of fierce light. But the Voidborn were unlike any enemy faced before. Their forms flickered between reality and shadow, immune to conventional attack, their strikes tearing through hulls and shields alike. In the chaos, Tala's ship was rocked violently. "Report," she barked. Several compartments breached. The engineer shouted, "We're losing power in the aft section." "Divert all available energy to shields," Tala ordered. "Keep us in formation." Across the fleet, the battle raged with brutal intensity. The humans deployed advanced technology, fields that disrupted the Voidborn's shifting forms, weapons tuned to their strange energies. Imperial forces fought with relentless discipline, holding the line as the Coalition pushed deeper. But victory was not assured. Deep within the rift, the source of the Voidborn's power loomed, a colossal entity of shadow and malice, its form a roiling tempest of despair. It radiated a force that sapped hope and will, a darkness that threatened to consume even the strongest minds. Captain Arya transmitted a message. "This is the heart of the Voidborn. We must strike at its core, or all is lost." Tala exchanged a glance with Arya. "A suicide mission." Arya's gaze was steely. "No one else can, it's up to us." The Coalition's elite forces assembled for the final push. Tala led a small strike team aboard the Vigilant Edge, navigating a narrow approach to the entity's core. Inside, the darkness writhed and whispered, clawing at their minds. Memories of fear, failure, and loss surged like waves. But Tala drew on something deeper: human resilience, imperial honor, and the will to survive. "We fight not just for ourselves," she said, voice steady despite the shadow's assaults. "We fight for the future." With synchronized precision, the Coalition unleashed their most powerful weapons, ancient human tech fused with imperial firepower, piercing the entity's heart. The Voidborn screamed, a soundless cry that shattered space itself. Light erupted, pushing back the darkness in a blinding wave. When the light faded, the rift was sealed. The shadow receded. The galaxy was saved. In the aftermath, the fragile alliance held firm. The Empire, humbled by its near destruction, embraced change. The humans, no longer strangers but partners, helped rebuild shattered worlds and share forgotten knowledge. Commander Tala Rin and Captain Arya Morgan stood side by side on the bridge of the Vigilant Edge, watching as stars slowly brightened across the galaxy. "We faced the darkness together," Tala said quietly. Arya smiled. "And together, we'll shape the future." The mysterious human fleet had arrived as an enigma. Now they were the beacon of hope. The galaxy's story had changed forever.